All right. So, hey, chamber music fans. This
Hello.
is Michelle Schumann here with the Austin Chamber Music Center. I'm here with Graham Reynolds. I'm very happy to be doing an interview with him because we have an upcoming show where we're going to be featuring one of his newish works.
Yes.
And we were just chatting for a second. We've known each other, well, I think we've known each other longer than 10 years, but we first started working together about 10 years ago.
10-year anniversary of working together.
Yes, and you wrote this fantastic piece for double reed trio, so oboe, bassoon, and piano, and it was a great work. We enjoyed it so much, and I've been a huge fan of yours.
It was super fun also because I play piano and I've always been the performer, and so writing for piano proved to be really difficult. Even
So that was one of the first times that you actually gave over the reins of the piano part.
Exactly. It was totally fun and a strange experience.
Because prior to that, would you write out your music a lot? Because
usually,
in that one,
even now.
Because in that piece there wasn't any improvisation that I recall. I don't think there was any. So you gave me a full written.
Yeah, I didn't know
score.
if you improvised at all at that point. Right. And no, even nowadays, if I do a score, usually it's it's got the strings, it's got the winds, it's got whatever, and the piano part is blank.
That's the way Beethoven used to do it. Like, I guess the concertos would be like all the orchestra parts were written out, and then there would be nothing in the piano part. They would fill it in after the first performance or something when other people wanted to play it. So that was fun. And then you've been teaching at Austin Chamber Music Center in the Academy for longer than that, maybe, or maybe around the same time.
Yeah, Peter started teaching there, and then he brought me in, and I don't know how long it's been. It's been at least 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love doing it.
Yeah, the kids love you, and they've grown so much. And then, of course, the huge success of Mother Falcon. I think that was so cool for that. And that was maybe one of the first group of kids that you worked with, right?
A lot of them were in the very first class we had.
Yeah.
And then some of them were the younger brothers and sisters of that class, too. So it was...
Right.
But yeah, we met those people on the first day.
Yeah, so we might have generations and generations of Mother Falcon type bands.
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool. You've been doing a ton of commissions for a long time, and especially in Austin, I almost feel like you are one of the most commissioned composers in Austin. Of course, you do commissions outside of Austin, but from ballet and chamber music, and I think you did the premiere of the Long Center with the Austin Symphony.
Yep.
And then we started on a work together, which we will finish once his baby comes out and I can focus on something else. How do you approach different commissions with different people?
I try to treat them a little bit like a collaboration. You know, if I'm working with the ballet or the symphony or a chamber group or whoever, or a soloist, I treat it the same as if I'm working with a film director or choreographer or theater director, whoever it might be, and try to write something that they want to play. That's one, especially when there's time and access to do that. If it's not for an ensemble, then I sort of I'm doing something for Ballroom Marfa, which is an art nonprofit and art gallery. And
it's a crazy place.
Yeah.
I've been there. Yeah, it's very cool.
So I'm treating sort of Marfa Ballroom and then Marfa itself and then West Texas as collaborators. This is one thing that I'm sort of just trying to learn about what they do and what their mission is, what their aesthetic is and what they're interested in, what Marfa as a town is and what it's going through. And then sort of driving around West Texas, going to parks and just thinking about the character of West Texas.
I almost feel like your approach is different than a lot of composers, because I almost get the feeling that a lot of composers, they know what they want to do, and they try to if they get a commission, they just want to morph it into what they're already working on. And so it's great, and I think it's part of the reason why you get so many commissions is because you make it a really, I guess, rewarding experience to the collaboration. Because even with us starting, getting together and you showing me some of your ideas and doing some improvisations, I thought that, so far I love the experience that we've had.
That's really fun. Yeah, I love to do that where I create, say, 10 ideas and then you come over, Stephen Mills comes over, whoever it might be, and then whichever ones sort of light the person up a little bit are the ones to pursue. The other ones I may use for something else, or I may let them go, or whatever it might be.
But do you almost view it as like an opportunity to expand what you're doing artistically by that collaboration? So you're not coming from a standpoint of like, I know what I want to do and forcing that, but you actually, you sort of use your collaborators.
I mean, a big difference between me and most other composers nowadays is I'm active as a performer. So if I want it to sound a very specific way, or if I want to create a very specific piece of music, I can play it.
Right.
And so, you know, put together an ensemble and present it in that way. So if I'm writing something for you, I want it to be something that's going to bring out your musical personality as well as mine. And it's more rewarding that way, too.
Well, and I've been talking about this a lot sometimes when I play this piece by, do you know this composer, Fazıl Say? He's a Turkish composer, and he's a pianist. And I always talk to audiences when I play a piece by him because it's so unusual now to have a performer and composer. And it used to be the norm. Like, we all know that Bach was this monster improviser, and everyone, they were not separated. And in fact, I think there were a lot more performers, concert performers, who were also composers. We just don't know them as composers because they maybe weren't as good of composers. But certainly all the great composers were performers in their own right. And somewhere around, I think, the turn of the last century, it just started to get split off, and you just don't see it so much anymore. So, and I think it makes a huge difference in the writing.
It does. It makes a huge difference in the writing approach, and I mean everything. It correlated right along with the invention of recording and recording technology, and things became so much more specialized. And you know, we're in a new century now, and I think it's starting to shift a little bit. I don't know if it'll shift all the way, but we might find more of a balance.
Well, and even when you think about it with performers and some of the new music that came out in the 10s and 20s and 30s, and as things get so sophisticated in a way, and it's just so ridiculously difficult in a way. And it's not, I'm not trying to say that your music is any easier. What I'm trying to say is you almost have to be not even a specialist in being a good pianist if you're going to play the music of Elliott Carter, but you almost have to specialize in his music. Certainly, or someone like Xenakis. You play, that's what you decide you're going to play if you're going to do anything. So it almost makes sense that you need the sort of performing specialists to do your music in that way. But I think there's just something much more holistic about it, and to know that a composer's coming from a point of performance, I just think that I enjoy it too.
I want it to be fun to play. I mean, it doesn't want. I shouldn't have an absence of challenges, but the challenges should be rewarding if they're there. And then like I understand cadenzas used to be in concertos, where the hardest part, the flashiest part, was left for the performer, because Liszt might be great at octaves and going up octaves, somebody else might be great at arpeggio, somebody else might be great at trills, so you leave that portion for them to express and show off
their goods.
And so I don't want to make it so difficult and then have it being a reward for just me.
Well, and speaking of that reward, like when there is a piece that you play, and and that might be a similar piece that is published that someone else can play. What's your experience of hearing someone else play your music?
The first time I did it, I think was Tosca String Quartet, where I wrote a piece and I sat in the audience, and it was just bizarre. But also, it's really fun. It's you have to let go a little bit.
Right, because you have an idea of what it's supposed to sound like and what the interpretation is as you're writing it, that you must become very attached to.
Exactly. You spend a long time with it, and you're hearing it in your head. You're hearing the notation software play it back. But you more often than not, more is brought to it that I couldn't have imagined, and so it's really exciting to hear for the first time. No matter how vivid my imagination might be, it still is not the same as hearing it live in person.
And what about other pianists playing your stuff? But that probably doesn't happen too often, right?
Rick Rowley, you, a few times here
and there. So now
and
you
there.
have to say that it was so great when you heard.
Well, we've done, and Rick and I have done other things with Darlene Wiley.
Right.
And yeah, and Peter occasionally Peter Stepchinsky will do like we'll cover each other's music or something like that. And I mean, it's really fun. For one thing, y'all are much better. Your facility is higher than mine, and so I have a lot of fun. I put a lot of energy into playing, but I can write things with more precision that I couldn't accomplish myself. And there was one when I was studying growing up. I pictured being able to play all these things that at some point I said, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. So I put that in your part.
Awesome. Well, and one thing that I noticed that when I was doing this piece by Fazil Say, he had 3 different recordings of the same piece. I'm talking about this piece called Black Earth. I don't know if you know, but it's a super cool piece. And like eventually after I learned it, I went to YouTube to see if he had any videos out. He had 3 different videos, and they're all totally different from one another and totally different from the score itself. And it got me thinking about a lot of things, not just that I would have some sort of freedom and license to play this piece in a way that could be very personal to me, and even in terms of improvisation, that it doesn't denote it in the score at all, but he's doing it, so it's like, wow, there's an open door here. But it honestly made me think about other composers, and that maybe how precious we've made other composers. Like, I think, and I know people would just completely shoot me for saying this, but I think every time Mozart played one of his piano sonatas, it would have been different every single time. Based on the audience. I mean, for us, no matter, even if we're trying to replicate the same sort of perfect, precise, fantastic interpretation, it's going to be different based on where you are, your instrument, how the audience
and
reacts.
If you wrote it again, and not only played it, but if you wrote it again the next month or the next day, it would be different. It's just a recording of the iteration that's in your head at that moment, at that day. And there's no way that would be the same. You see that with Stravinsky or George Lucas or whatever artists, they go back to their work and tinker with it later on because your mind shifts about how it should be.
Sure. And that doesn't mean that the way it was before was a bad way either, but that there are different versions and there are all these possibilities. So I think that's been a great thing for me to work with modern composers and see that there is that the part of being a performer is an important part of this. The music doesn't just live in the score itself, but lives in the live performance. And if that can really have life...
it allows for this sort of 3-way dialogue with the instrument, or 4-way, with the composer, the instrument, the player, and then the audience. You can feel whether, a tempo is connecting with an audience, or the dynamics are connecting with an audience, and different rooms call for different ways of playing. So the more flexibility there is, both in the writing and in the way the performer approaches it, it really makes it visceral and can communicate with the audience in a way that if you're strict and doing it to the letter, it's much harder to achieve. I
think people, including performers, often forget that the audience is a dynamic in this, and that you can totally feel the audience. If you're willing to feel the audience, you can totally feel it. You can feel when you're losing them, and you got to work harder, and you can feel like when they're just there, and that you can take all the time in the world, or play as soft as humanly possible, because you know that they're kind of there with you. And audiences should know that too, that there's such an important part of that. So it's
when I play a live show, I often start with a piano improvisation before we go into whatever the first piece is, and depending on the room, it can be more effective to start, extremely quietly and delicately, and then build into something really exciting. And then in other rooms, that are more restless, or that somehow need to be, their attention needs to be grabbed, and then you start big and loud, and then you can go into the quiet once they're like, oh, this is worth listening to and focusing on, then you've won them over, and you can go back. And both at the moment you do it, if it's done right and the audience responds the way you think they're going to, it's the exact right choice, and the opposite would have been counterproductive.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you get too set in your way and don't listen to the feeling of the audience. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about your experience with Cult of Color and with the ballet, and how that all kind of came about.